For our call out this week, we take a look at the firestorm that's been created by the Trump administration's attempt to bury the Jeffrey Epstein matter. Welcome to the Call Like I See It podcast. I'm James Keys here with Tunde Ogunlana. And for our call out this week, we discuss the Trump administration's efforts to gaslight the public on the existence of the Jeffrey Epstein file and videos and so forth, and consider why so far they're having such a hard time getting Trump's followers to fall in line on this issue. So Tunde, we've seen over the past week or two, the Trump administration apparently made a concerted decision they did an about face earlier this year. They were talking about all these files that they had and all these videos that they had and all this stuff they were going to release. And then as of, maybe about July of this year, 2025, they started saying, oh, there is nothing and they're not releasing anything and everybody just needs to move on. And this has created quite a firestorm, something that was surprising to me, and I know to you as well, because and what we understand now is that there are a lot of people invested in this and that we're expecting this stuff to be released and for there to be a lot of salacious stuff and a lot of crazy stuff. Their hopes had been really built up on what may be in here and what they're going to find. And so now, they are either don't know what to think or they're thinking that something's up, something's fishy with the Trump administration or what. They don't know what to think from that standpoint, but people are mad. So what do you make? First, let's talk about the about face. So what do you think about the about face that we've seen from the Trump administration with Trump and Bondi and folks like that, as far as the existence even of Epstein files? Not forget about the fact of whether they're going to release them, but just saying they don't even exist anymore.
All right, so I'm going to answer your question, but for this show today, for the audience that's watching, not listening, I made a prop for the first time. And so I have a tinfoil hat on.
Tinfoil hat, literally, a literal tinfoil hat.
But I'm patriotic because, look, it's got American flags underneath, you see? So I made sure to be a patriotic
that's
tinfoil hat.
True to the times, man, true to the
Correct.
times.
Yeah, so I won't be deported either, so it's cool. So you're going to have to suffer this show with this stupid hat on, sir, because I took 10 minutes of my life to make it. So it's going to be you.
Hey, man, knock yourself out, man. I'm happy your creativity's at work, man.
No, but no, because I want to answer. Now I'll be serious after I was just stupid. Because the term that comes to mind, James, honestly, and I don't mean this to be flippant here, but it's like, it reminds me of an abusive relationship, seriously. Because I know we're going to talk about this, and I'm trying to also, it's been long enough now that this has been talked about a lot. So a lot of people have heard kind of the basic stuff. So I don't want to go over too much what I think everyone's heard, but going to 30,000 feet, everybody who watches this politics in his last few years understands that not only did, the president of the United States use this type of issue, just like he used birtherism and other types of conspiracies as part of his own wedge to ascend to power and get people's attention and so all that. But specifically, as you cited, some of the people he's brought into this second administration, some of them have built their careers in podcasting and cable news, specifically off the back of this issue of Jeffrey Epstein. And then others, like you said about the attorney general, have been very emphatic that there is a lot of evidence, and I'm not just talking the list and how they're trying to walk that back, but she said specifically in several different press conferences that I've seen in interviews that there are thousands of photos. I heard her say out of her mouth there's 200 victims.
Yeah.
So
no, this is not from years ago. This was like her stuff.
Yeah, this is
since
like
she's been attorney general.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
so you're right. So let's just recast this, James. It's July.
Yeah.
All these people got into their jobs in late January, on January 20th. Or actually, she was later because she got approved by the Senate. So the point is that, yes, this is not old news. And that's what I mean by it's an abusive relationship and they don't respect their partner, right? Meaning, in this case, their voters, their audience, the people that have given them support, because they have built this up so much. And now, and again, it's the cover up, not the crime, as always, right? Like, instead of having a good way to if they didn't want to release this stuff, they could have just said, okay, we got to have a good narrative. We got to have a game plan here. And they clearly didn't because they don't respect their audience.
Or like they could have come up with, they released some stuff before and it was like, oh, this stuff's already been public. They could have done that again and just, stuff that was already out. Oh, this is all there was. Like, I think you're right in the sense that they didn't even come up with that good of an excuse.
Yeah,
I'm
it's like
reminded
a lack
the
of
old song.
respect.
Yeah, the old song.
Like,
What was it? Shaggy, it wasn't me. Like, and it's like
yeah.
woman walked in the room and he's there. And you're like, just say it wasn't you. It's like, what? And that was the whole song. Though, it was like, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I know, but I saw you, man. But it wasn't me.
Yeah.
And this feels like that to me. It's just like, yo, they've been saying this stuff over and over and over and over again, and over time and recently. And now it's like, nah, there's nothing there, man. I don't know what you guys are talking about. This is all that's old news. It's like, wow, like. So, yeah, the level of disrespect is what I really agree with you on. Is just like, wow, because I wasn't waiting for this with bated breath. I'm taking skeptically everything that Trump has been saying about anything. It's like, oh, yeah, I know you'll say anything. So, you feel like you need to say it at any given moment.
But can I speak to that for a second?
Well, let me say this. There were people who really, were in on this, and that the bargain that was offered to these people that were really in on this Epstein thing and really wanted to know what was happening on Trump wanted undying loyalty in exchange for I'll release this stuff for you. And now it's like, I don't even know what you're talking. He's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And
he's calling him stupid now.
Yeah, so
it's an abusive relationship.
So yeah, the level of disrespect really stood out to me because it was just like, wow, like I'm looking from the outside. Like, it wasn't me that's sitting here offended or I didn't believe them when they said all of this stuff, but it was like, I believe what I see from my standpoint. Yeah. But I was like, man, there were a lot of people that really believed you on that. And then just, again, turn around and say, no, there was nothing there ever. There was never anything there. It's like, what? That's wow.
Yeah. Well, here's what I think is happening, James. We have, this country has been misdirected in many ways on many different topics in recent years. And I'm not going to say this election, but just for the purpose of this conversation, let's just talk about going into the 2024 election. And, things that a lot of people recognize when they say them. I mean, things like DEI, things like no wars. We're going to stop the Ukraine war on day one, and we're not going to go into the Middle East. And all that stuff hasn't happened. And the opposite has happened in a lot of it, right? I thought DEI was about meritocracy. We have some of the most incompetent people at the heads of agencies that we've ever had. The defense secretary. Let's talk about the number 2 in the FBI. It's Wednesday today. He hasn't been at work since last Wednesday because specifically of this issue. Like, as if there's nothing else he's got to do on his job as number 2 in the FBI. You see what I'm saying? So the level of incompetency is a joke. But what I'm realizing, James, is that I guess, like, what also I think the administration and the president himself thought is that, I'll do enough show for the crowd that thinks that DEI is whatever, and they're going to be happy with me taking Jackie Robinson off the Arlington website. They're going to be happy with me talking smack in public, firing Charles Brown from the Joint Chiefs. That's enough show to satisfy that group. The anti-immigration group, they get satisfied with the Alligator Alcatraz, with the flights and the well-produced videos of people being taken to El Salvador. They seem to be satisfied with that.
Just real quick. That's why those things are always so public. Like, for all we know, they could have been going around trying to actually find illegal immigrants and deport them and not been silent about it. But that wasn't the MO.
Yeah, that's
the MO was like, we want you all to know that we're out here doing this and we're doing it in a mean way. Yeah. We're sending them to third countries they're not even from. We're putting them in these industrial prisons in Central America. Like, that stuff was very loud because it was that show, that was supposed to satisfy the emotion that the person that wanted that was coming.
Yeah. And so here's what I realized, James. People like you and I can see that, right? We can see that misdirection. Hey, man, with all this stuff you talked about going into November of last year, you've basically done the opposite, or you haven't focused on certain things that you said you would blah, blah, blah.
Or you've done it in a way of style and not substance, so to speak.
Yeah, and also, but we're not so passionate that we're going to get in the street about it. And I would say this, what I'm realizing is the people who he's satisfied with some of these optical things, these optical illusions on these other topics, they also seem to not be as passionate about the topic itself. They're just satisfied. Okay, he's doing something about DEI. He's doing something about immigration. I'm happy. What I think he miscalculated is that this group of people who are really about this Epstein stuff, they're going to die on this hill. This is a really big thing for them because, and I'm not part of that universe and that ecosystem online, and I'm not here to make fun of those people. But what I realized in even preparing for today, how deep this goes back to the Pizzagate stuff, there's people that really do believe there's cabals of elites in government, internationally, all that, Hollywood, whatever, that hurt children. And this is a big deal to them. And so I'm not here to make fun of them.
To the people that are going to expose them all too. Remember, that's part of the
correct. So that's where I'm going. I'm not here to make fun of them. What I think is sad, and that's what I mean, this is really sad, is that they were taken advantage of. This is why it's an abusive relationship. It appears that Trump never had a desire to release these documents, right? And when now faced with it, he won't. Period. And so that's where I think, James, this is interesting, because I think the level of passion around this topic, this is why I think he's lashing out like an abusive partner when he's saying, there's nothing to see here, just shut up, and calling his people stupid, because he's frustrated.
Weaklings.
He's frustrated that they just won't go away and accept his version of events. But I don't think, and that's what I mean, this shows the lack of respect truly that they have for their audience and their base, at least the base that believes in this stuff. Because why would they gin them up so much if they knew they weren't going to show it? Why would Kash Patel and Dan Bongino be saying what they said? Why would Pan Bomdi? So it shows that.
Well, the alignment piece, though, I want to talk about that here in a second, because there's going to be movement on this, and we're doing this at a given moment in time, but there's going to be movement in terms of whether people, because we saw this not necessarily to this extent, but we saw a big outcry after January 6th, and there were people within the GOP coalition that were really upset. And they were grandstanding about, oh, this is unacceptable, yada, yada, yada. And it took a few weeks, maybe a month, and all of them got back in line, basically, and saying, okay. And then now most of those people now will be saying, oh, this was all fake and yada, yada, yada. But you go back and look at what they were saying when they were upset about that. And I think what we have to keep in mind with this is, generally speaking, that the Trump coalition is one built on, in large part, and you're talking about the numbers, the masses, it's built on emotion. It's built on people who have a certain dislike of something, or a passionate dislike of something, or a passionate fear of something. And those either fears or dislikes, or, just that kind of stuff is what they're fed, that emotion. And that's why it's not something where it's like, okay, you're weighing this fact, you're weighing that fact. It's like, okay, what do you care the most about? Let me feed you some red meat to that. And then in exchange for that, you unconditionally support me. No matter what comes out about me, you can come out that I'm stealing. It can come out that I'm, double dipping. It can come out anything about me. You have to stick with me, because I'm feeding this emotional thing, or I'm feeding you. I'm fulfilling this emotional need for you, this thing that you care the most about. And so what we're seeing right now really is that, like, the people who care the most about the Epstein thing, they realize, or now it's like, oh, he stopped feeding it to them. It's like, oh, he's been feeding them. Oh, we got something good for you, or Pam Bondi, we got something good. It's about to drop. It's about to be crazy. And they stop. Now they're like, oh, we're not going to feed you that anymore. We're done feeding that to you. Figure out something else to care about. And that's that's a big ask, because again, those people were selected for the fact that was what they cared about the most. And so when you build on emotion, though, like, emotion it is very good for control. Like, I remember, we've done the book. We'll probably talk about it again soon. 48 Laws of Power. At the very beginning of that book, he talks about, like, once you go to emotion, you lose all control. Like, that's one of the first lessons he's talking about, is that what you yourself, you become emotional about something, you've lost control. The other person's taking control for you. So that's kind of the interplay I think that we're seeing now. And with them doing this about face is pulling away this emotional, or them feeding, it's satisfying this emotional issue for these people. And so now we don't know how it's going to unfold. We don't know where it's going to go from here. And I'm going to ask you about that. Like, generally speaking, we've seen Trump's followers ultimately get behind pretty much everything he says or does. Like they'll find a way, to get behind. And so do you think, or why do you think they're having such a good time with this? Or is it just that we just haven't had enough time for them to swing back in and sit down and shut up like he's telling them to do?
Like you said, we're recording this very early into it, kind of 2 weeks, 10 days into it. So I'm not going to make that prediction of how it plays out, because usually it plays out where he is able to maintain most of the base's support. So that could totally be the way it plays out this time, even though right now it seems like this is the biggest scandal for him and his base that we've seen since in the two terms that he's served, the first term and then into this one.
Well, so I would think January 6th was comparable to this, in terms of, How
Well, let's
now
put
maybe
it
not
this way.
from the elites, maybe not from the ground.
Yeah, I was going to say this
ground.
base. I don't think so. They are baked in. I have friends that tell me that
you're right about that. You're
January
right.
6th
So
was all the FBI.
from the ground
And
level
so,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and so I think that's what makes this different. I'm also seeing something as I watch, stuff online that the podcast community on the right is beginning to break a bit. Some supporting, saying we need to move on and listen to the president. Others that are really digging in their heels more so than I've ever seen. And I think this may be an opportunity for some. I've noticed, and I'm just speculating here, but I noticed someone like Megyn Kelly, who's been very aggressive about this. But I also was reminded when I was watching her on TV talk about this or on her show, just on a clip, this might be her moment to throw a jab back. Because remember, her whole reign at Fox News, she was a main anchor, big time news person, was derailed in 2016 because of her issue with Trump in one of the campaign debates. Remember that he said blood coming out of her, whatever, and all. And it that's what got her off of Fox, the fact he didn't like her. So what I'm saying is we might see more of this, James, that once somebody looks a little bit wounded and they're limping, more people that have an axe to grind may come out and start trying to chop them down. Whether it works or not, who knows? But this could be, something interesting. So that would be my thought there, James. But I agree with you that this one is different. And there's a thought I wanted to share that I want you to stay with me on this, because when you talk about passions, it reminds me of some of the discussions we've had about partisanship.
Yeah.
Right. And
that's where I'm going to go next. So
So I'll save that for you because I want to hear it. But one of the things that I thought of in preparing for today is, for the first time, people like us have been concerned for a long time and been vocal about it. We did a show last year on Project 2025 about some of the risks to representative government that have been taking place in this country over the last 20 years. The whittling down of campaign finance laws, all that stuff. And so what I thought of, James, is this is actually this crowd for the first time, this base, because we're not surprised about this stuff, but the people that are, for the first time, are getting a taste of what it looks like to live under a king. Because what I thought is, this is exactly how a king operates. It doesn't matter what scandal happens in a kingdom. They will just tell you, you can't see it. And if you keep asking, you're going to the gallows, period. Or you're going to go to Alligator Alcatraz. You keep asking these questions.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, yesterday was, as we record this today, Congress had a vote on whether to use their role as an equal branch to the executive to investigate the executive as to what's going on here. Why is the DOJ playing these games? Why are they saying one thing and doing another? Give us something. They abdicated their responsibility and voted not to pursue this. So again, this is what a king looks like.
The Republicans leading that vote, like that. There was one Republican that voted with the Democrats to try to force this. The rest of the Republicans in lockstep, voted to keep it all secret and to not.
Correct.
So it's becoming a partisan issue at that sense.
Yeah. So and that's what I'm getting at. So we're watching the Congress not doing its job and allowing one man to make a decision about this. And then the last thing, and then I'll hand it back for the partisanship, is then I'm thinking about the Attorney General. And I thought, she is representing the President of the United States to protect him and whatever's in those files. She's not representing the United States right now. And this goes in contrast with Jefferson Sessions, who was the first Attorney General in the first term, who recused himself when there was an investigation on some stuff because he said, I'm the Attorney General for the United States. I'm not the personal lawyer for the President of the United States. So that's what I thought of, James, is just, this is what it looks like with real centralized power. When the justice system is protecting one man or whatever he wants, the people he wants, because clearly there's other people in these Jeffrey Epstein files and lists that he clearly sees a reason to protect, whether he's in it or not. He's not releasing them. Everybody in the Justice Department is part of the executive branch, from Pam Bondi to Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. So there's no excuse. Donald Trump can tell them to go do whatever they want. Whatever he wants them to do, and they got to listen or they get fired. And then I'm saying
but that's not necessarily how it's supposed to work. You're saying that's how it's working right now.
Well, what I'm saying is, if he wanted those documents released, they'd be released. It appears that he doesn't want them released, so they're doing his bidding, not the bidding of the United States to protect innocent victims of pedophilia.
But part of the reason why they're there is because the things he learned in the first term, that you can't have people that will put their loyalty to the system over him. And so he, instead of having a Sessions or a Barr, he has Bondi, who, if he says, jump, she'll say how high,
That's my point.
And so that's kind of the point. So yes, if he wanted this stuff out because of the kinds of people he's put in charge, it would be out. If he didn't want it out, it's not going to be out, And so, and like you said, it could be because he's in it. It could be because other people that he doesn't want to come out, or who are giving him lots of money, through Trump coin or whatever, don't want it out. It could be for anything. It could be, that's the point, is that it's arbitrary. It's not.
If Obama was in it, he'd release it. If he was the only one.
So, I mean, to me, I tend to think that we're just too early in the process. I tend to think that all these people are going to put their tail between their legs and they're going to go right back to him. The Trump has positioned himself in a way I find pretty remarkable, as there are a lot of people, a lot of his followers, their happiness is tied to his success. Him doing well makes them feel good about themselves. And so I think, however he did that, which I think is a remarkable thing that he did, there. But they feel anguish with him being attacked right now because their happiness is tied to him doing well and him being successful. This is why he can openly accept bribes, because it's like him winning makes them feel good, And so I think we're just too early in the process. I give it a couple weeks, and I could be dead wrong. This is quite a prediction because now we're in the middle of the firestorm, and it looks like this could get crazy, But to me, I think we're just so early in the process that they are going to fall in line. Tails between their legs, they're going to fall in line because they're going to want their feel good again. And he has conditioned them to get their feel good from him. They don't feel good about being an American, about being in a constitutional system, about, the economy doing this or about something in their own. They feel good about Trump being their leader. And so I think that as long as that is in place for so many people, and again, how it happened, I'm not here to discuss, but that is what seems to have happened. And if that being the case, as we've talked about and he talked about, he could shoot somebody in the middle of the street and they may be like, oh, why'd you do that? Oh my God, that's crazy. And then a week later, it's like, oh, well, that person, they looked at him side eyes. It was reckless eyeballing, type of thing. And then it's, it's right back.
That one,
exactly.
So you might have to explain that
one. So
that's almost like the psychic waves you'd have to explain that you already described, but I stayed quiet. But keep going.
But some things are left. That's what the Google machine
better left unsaid.
Exactly.
Let me jump in here because there's another direction that I also had thought about, so I'm going to bring up an article that I've printed that I found from September 16, 2022, because I really wanted to, James, coming into this discussion, not make it about ridicule and joking. I want to see, what is it that there's this slice of our population, it might be 20, 25%, because I've been hearing this for years now, since kind of the Pizzagate stuff a decade ago, about this thing about pedophiles and globalists and the elites and da-da-da-da-da, and I'm not really into it, right? So I kind of hear it on the periphery, but I'm like, wow, after this, I'm like, I didn't realize this was this big for a lot of people. And so what this tells me, James, it's another example of discussions we've had in the past about how fractured our information networks really are.
Yeah.
Because when you and I grew up, we were watching the same thing. Dan Rather, Tom Brokaw, Peter Jennings. One of those three was what we were watching every night. And everybody, 80% of this country got the same information. And the people with hats like mine today, the tinfoil hat crowd, had to get it on pamphlets or had to get the mail-in, order stuff, and just it was less available.
More importantly, they were all dispersed. They were a bunch of individual nodes, maybe connected to a small pod, but not congregating, eating each other on.
And we never had a leader of the country amplifying this kind of stuff too. So it's all kind of this swimming in this new stew and these ingredients that have gotten us here. So I'll just read a couple of highlights that they talk about. He started posting Q-related posts. This goes to QAnon, which I believe was one of the main groups of people that started this back in the Pizzagate days in 2016. Is Q-related posts in contrast to 2020 when he claimed that while he didn't know much about QAnon, he couldn't disprove its conspiracy theory. So this is him like with birtherism, flirting with a conspiracy, not going all in on it, but letting the people know who believe it that he's giving them a wink, like, yeah, you're not crazy to me. I'll listen, and I'm here. So, quote, pressed on QAnon theories that Trump allegedly is saving the nation from a satanic cult of child sex traffickers. One of the gentlemen, Trump claimed ignorance, but asked, "Is that supposed to be a bad thing?" And then the next quote, the next question is, "If I can help save the world from problems, I'm willing to do it," Trump said. So my point is, it reminds me a lot of birtherism. Trump understood the nature of some people in this country and their psychology. They were disturbed by having a black president, but in that, we were at a time that it wasn't politically correct or accepted to use the N-word and to be an open bigot. So birtherism was the off-ramp emotionally that a lot of people that didn't like that fact that he was president, Obama was president, they got on that lane to say, okay, that makes me feel good. Now I can identify
that he was not legitimate. That
correct. So now I can identify
that conspiracy. He's illegitimate, and so therefore he wasn't a black president.
Correct. So if I say that, that's the coded N-word, right? If I'm a birther, I can caucus with other people who believe like me, and I think that's what happened here with QAnon.
That also, that's an emotional. That's feeding someone something that feels emotion, that gives them emotional fulfillment. So it's the same. That's the same kind of a thing that we're talking about here. Is that these things that nourish someone's emotional kind of what they're feeling, what they're thinking. It nourishes that.
And I'll lean in further. It gives them a sense of purpose, right? Which most people gravitate to a purpose. And this purpose now is protecting children, which is very important. I mean, that's what I want to say. We shouldn't diminish the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and there's real victims here. And that's my point, is why it's disrespectful for the way the Justice Department said, this is basically case closed and we're never going to look at it again. Well, how come there's people getting paid out of the victims fund? You know what I mean? Like, why is there acknowledgement that there was harm done here, and for more people than just Jeffrey Epstein? So my point is, just reading that stuff from 2022. That's why I wanted to bring that article up, because this is nothing new. It was a reminder to me that, wow, this has been going on a long time. And I guess this is an example that I just don't traffic in these silos of information online and all that. And I'm not saying I'm better than someone else. That's why they don't understand when I talk to them and tell them that the biggest benefactors of DEI were white women, then white men who were veterans, then white disabled men. So you had to go to number 8 on the list to get to blacks as a beneficial group from DEI, but that's not what they saw in their information networks. That's what I saw in mine. And that's part of the issue here, is that these kind of things bubble up and you got portions of this country saying, what the hell is this about? And other people so passionate about it. So
that's the thing, is that it's not like everybody's aware of it and people are like, or aware of the extent of it. And some people are like, oh yeah, that's important to me. And other people are like, no, that's not important to me. It's like, this can catch people off guard. Like, wow, you guys were really into this. And you guys, your expectations on this were really, really, really,
dude,
huge.
The deputy FBI director has not been to work for 1 week, apparently, because he's upset about this. Like, there's nothing else for him to do in the FBI. There's no fentanyl coming across the border. There's no cyber espionage coming. None of that's there. That's important. He's upset and he just walked off the job because of this. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I didn't know this topic was that important to the FBI director.
But again, it's not, to be clear, it's not the topic of whether children were being taken advantage of. It's the topic of whether we're going to release information that the government knows so that people can be held accountable. That's the issue we're talking about here. And so it's good I'm glad you pointed out, like, hey, if we're trying to protect children, that is a great thing. But right now, there's all this investigation stuff. And in order for accountability to happen with this stuff, the information should be made public. And that was what has been promised. And to turn around now and say that there is no information, it doesn't exist, is really like we talked about earlier, a slap in the face. But like I said, I think because of the way that people have been conditioned, the people who are the most upset about this, because of the way they and their peers, remember, this is a community, they look to each other to excuse this stuff because they got to stay together under the banner of Trump. And so in the partisanship, I want to close up, but the partisanship point I was going to make is this is also why when Trump or the Trump administration talks about people they don't agree with, they use words like evil. They use words like these people are wicked and things like that. Like when the other side, whatever it is, if these people were just like, oh man, these are decent people, we just don't agree with them, or they think we should go right and we think we should go left, or whatever. Like we think that the bridge should be built here, they think the bridge should be built there. Then it's much easier to when your trust is betrayed like this, when you are played like this, it's much easier to say, you know what, I'm gonna rock with this guy for a little bit and see what they're talking about. But when that other guy is evil, it's not just a disagreement. It's like that person's evil. That person is sitting around trying to figure out ways to do mean stuff to you. Then that's not an option. So, like you pointed out, abusive relationship before, it's about isolating the person. So that person feels isolated now. That Trump supporter, Trump follower, they're isolated now. They can't go anywhere else. All they have is Big Daddy. Like they got to go back to Big Daddy because that's all they got. Yeah, so
that's where if we had a legitimate.
Well, I was gonna say it's unfortunate. I want to wrap though, but you said you had one more.
Yeah. Well, I got one more, but I was just going to answer this point of view. If we had a legitimate opposition party, that would be maybe a place where people could feel like they could go. But our politics is so dysfunctional. We're not there right now. But just to finish off, I wanted to make the point and just finish off on your partisanship point, because I think it's important. Remember, this was a very hyper-partisan issue. This group of people felt that it was Democrats, elite Democrats, Hollywood, a certain group of people, right? People on the progressive left that generally were behaving this way. And that's another thing too, is that this is where it becomes more of a crash into reality and the rocks of that they were conned, because it was partisan. So Trump, being a partisan person who doesn't like Democrats and that's why I read the article
that they're evil.
Yeah, that's why I said I read the article from 2022, because he was campaigning on getting back into office to expose this evil. And I think it's just like, it reminds me of Lock Her Up. That's all I'm saying, is that people seem to be satisfied that he didn't lock up Hillary Clinton, that he just said it and it was the show and all that. They seem satisfied he didn't build a wall. For some reason, this is the one they're not satisfied about. They want this one. And this is where I agree with you. We can't call it, it's too early, but it's going to be interesting.
Well, yeah, I went out on that limb though, but I'll tell you this. The craziest thing to me about it, and this is all speculation, so I'm not going to go deep in it, but like the expectation,
be like everyone else.
Everything that was sold was, this is all these Democrats, and that we're going to expose them and stuff. The about face, like the most rational conclusion you can draw from that is it wasn't a bunch of Democrats that were in there.
Yeah,
it was like, well, was it a bunch of Republicans that are in there? And now they're like, we can't release this stuff. I don't know, but the way that they behaved suggests that all of this stuff they were looking into, it wasn't
especially the Congress, man. The fact that the Congress didn't even do it and it's Republican led tells me, they got some of their own in there too.
People that are in here, it clearly isn't the people that you would love to expose.
Exactly.
And so,
but apparently Obama wrote it with Biden. So
yeah. So I mean, I think that the story's not over, obviously, because again, it is something people care deeply about. But like I said, the way that the way things have been positioned, though, I think that they're going to end up feeling like they have nowhere else to go. So they got it. And
that's a very important point, James.
In order to get back in the group, they're going to have to disclaim their free thinking, and they're going to have to say, whatever the leader says is what I'll do. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate because that's not really how our system is supposed to work.
I agree with you, man.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, and then for the rest of us who aren't, swimming in that stream, we're just looking around like, man, like what? This is crazy to see, like this is something that half of us, or even maybe even more of that, are looking around like, man, this is quite a firestorm, but it's something that, again, I'm not happy to see this, it shows.
I would counsel everyone, don't make fun of these people if they starting to talk to you and being curious about why you don't think that way. I think we all need to be very gracious right now. And if anyone's willing to jump off that train, and to say, I'm willing to look at something new because I really feel that I was conned. Don't say, well, you voted for this and all that. Just start talking to them and start bringing them back into normalcy, because this is a democracy. So we need enough people getting off this hyper-partisan stuff and calling other people evil and all that for us to right this ship. It's really about all of us together.
But I think we can call this an episode, from there. Excuse me. So we appreciate everybody for joining us on this episode called Like I See It. Subscribe to the podcast, rate it, review it, tell us what you think, send it to a friend. Till next time, I'm James Keys.
I'm Tunde, and I hope I never have to wear this hat again.
All right. Well, we
never had another show like this.
And we had another episode this week, so check that out, and we'll talk soon.